Alpine has decided who it doesn't want to drive for it in 2025, but given it doesn't feel it needs the services of Esteban Ocon, who does it want to sign? Or perhaps the real question should be, who can it sign? Alpine's struggles so far in 2024 hardly make it an appealing destination, except for those with a lack of options or drivers chasing their first big break. The fact Carlos Sainz is not a realistic target for Alpine is telling. It's a works team with a healthy budget and staffed by very accomplished people, but its lack of success means Sainz understandably steered clear after evaluating a return to a team he drove for in its Renault guys back in 2017 and 2018. And this is the same Sainz who has more seriously considered going to struggling Sauber. With the majority of drivers already signed up for 2025, and Alpine already having turned its back on one of the best free agents in Ocon, it could face a battle. Alpine's problems are extensive. The fact it's lumbered with a power deficit in the region of 25 brake horsepower is well known, and that's going to be the case until the new power units are introduced in 2026. And while Renault is confident about the progress it is making in hitting development targets with the new engine, it's nobody's hot tip for acing the new rules either. The current Alpine A524 has multiple problems. At the start of the season it was overweight, the consequence of the monocoque having to be strengthened after failing the lateral crash test. That weight problem has been tackled, but there's still an offset between the cars, with Ocon's around 1 kilo heavier at Monaco. Aerodynamically, the car is not great and it has generally struggled for traction, so while gains have been made and it's emerged as a lower midfield car lately rather than toiling at the back, Alpine still only has a paltry 5 points. There aren't expected to be any big updates in the immediate future, according to Pierre Gasly. It's hoped that new Executive Technical Director David Sanchez can have a positive effect in the short term. It's understood he has intervened to make some suggestions for ideas to be incorporated into the upcoming upgrades, which could potentially mean they take a little longer to appear, but work better. Alpine's target remains recapturing the 6th place in the championship that it took last year, although RB's impressive form means that now seems a long shot. However, salvaging 7th place is still at least a credible target, given Sauber and Williams have had a difficult start to the season too, and Haas isn't far ahead. But given the rest of 2024 and by extension 2025 is set to be tough, it's no surprise that Alpine is up against it when it comes to its driver lineup. Gasly is widely tipped to be staying at Alpine, but he's not yet confirmed. He has been exploring options elsewhere, and he is known to be on Audi's list as a potential recruit should it not land Sainz. Although Alpine has decided to throw its weight behind Gasly by parting company with Ocon, there's still a possibility it might end up losing both drivers. Gasly recently said he doesn't have a particular deadline in mind for securing his future. When he was asked recently if Alpine was his priority, he mentioned he's well aware of the opportunities that are out there and that everything is going well with discussions. That's hardly a ringing endorsement of Alpine. Even though right now it is most likely Gasly will stay on, at the very least he's keeping his options open. That's a remarkable turnaround given how great a chance the Alpine move was in the first place. A switch to one of F1's few full works teams after being bought out of his Red Bull deal seemed a golden opportunity, but its slump this year has been alarming. The form has at least picked up a little, with Gasly making it to Q2 for the past 4 weekends and scoring points in the last 2 races. But what really matters is the progress the team is making and its prospects for the longer term. If there were to be an opportunity at Audi, then despite Sauber's current struggles, he could be tempted. If not, then Alpine will surely keep hold of him, but the fact that Gasly isn't yet a dead cert says much about its problems. Regardless of whether Alpine has 1 or 2 seats available, the obvious driver to pursue is Valtteri Bottas. He's available, Audi doesn't seem to want him unless it misses out on other targets, and he is comfortably the most successful free agent on the market with 10 victories to his name. He also has a vast amount of experience, most relevantly accumulated in 5 years with Mercedes and most recently with a Sauber team that's trying to build up. Plus, he's driven well so far in 2024 and comprehensively outperformed teammate Zhou Guanyu, albeit without scoring a point. And he's fast, and always has been. That's proved by his qualifying performances against Hamilton, a driver with the record for F1 pole positions, who he outqualified 31% of the time. Bottas is certainly interested in Alpine, but is also in contention at Haas and Williams, plus it's not completely out of the question he could stay at Sauber. However, even though he's no longer at his reputational peak as he was at Mercedes, Bottas would be a very good signing for Alpine. Today's video is sponsored by a cool little Danish company called Rec Watches. What's so cool about the watches they make is that they contain genuine parts from legendary machines from motorsport history. Rec watches have only been around for 10 years, founded by two Danish guys in a Copenhagen apartment, but already they've built timepieces using parts from Steve McQueen's TR6 motorcycle, Carroll Shelby's prototype Ford Mustangs, and John DeLorean's personal DMC-12, as well as other watches using stunt bikes and even aircraft. And their latest piece is really cool. It's called the 98 T4 and is named after the famous black and gold Lotus that Ayrton Senna drove in the 1986 Formula 1 World Championship. Rec Watches has worked with classic Team Lotus and reforged the original aluminium plenum tubes from Senna's 1986 F1 car into the outer chapter rings on this new watch. The process was so intricate the project has been 2 years in the making, and there are loads of other cool nods to the original F1 car, including the black and gold colour tones, the large 12 car number skeletonized on the rotor, and the movement backplate decoration which mimics the car's turbocharged Renault engine. Because original materials are used in each timepiece, this collection is strictly limited to just 989 watches, and each is individually numbered. The 98T4 pieces are exclusively available via recwatches.com, with a 20% pre-order discount for the fastest customers. Alpine reserve driver Jack Doohan is also a serious candidate for a race seat. In fact, he was one even before Alpine formally agreed to part company with Ocon. Promoting an Alpine Academy prospect would certainly appeal to the team, given the sense it would avenge the careless loss of Oscar Piastri to McLaren. But more important is how hard Doohan is working in the shadows to make his case. Team principal Bruno Fama says Doohan is an option and is being prepared. The 21-year-old has been on Alpine's books since early 2022, racking up 5 FP1 appearances and driving in the post-Abu Dhabi Grand Prix test twice. This year, he's benefiting from the push to utilise academy drivers more consistently in the Alpine Driver in Loop simulator programme. There's also a test programme for this year using a 2022 Alpine A522 that kicked off at Zandvoort last month. He may lack a racing programme, but his determined and professional approach, as well as his undisputed speed, has won Doohan admirers inside the team and means he has a credible chance of a career-making opportunity. While being on the sidelines is far from ideal, he's certainly making the most of the opportunities he is getting to advance his case. He's inexperienced, something he argues is a virtue given the lack of preconceptions and expectations. What's more, he might be the one driver who really does want this drive more than any other, given he's worked towards it since the start of 2022. Whether that's enough to convince Alpine is as yet unclear, but he is being taken seriously and the team has all the data on him it could need. There are inevitably other candidates, but right now they are long shots. Victor Martin is the other senior Alpine Academy driver and is seriously quick, even though he's had plenty of misfortune in his F2 campaign. He is getting simulator running, but appears to be behind Doohan in the pecking order, so is the longest of long shots. Mick Schumacher is also in the wider Alpine motorsport ecosystem, driving for the team in the World Endurance Championship. He's doing a good job there, but has not done anything truly exceptional. While he's an outside contender, it's understood he's not currently seen as a frontrunner for an F1 seat by Alpine, despite the fact he has 2 seasons with Haas under his belt. Kevin Magnussen could be available, given he's likely to be dropped by Haas unless he gets a reprieve with other targets moving elsewhere. He has experience and has driven for the team before in its Renault guys. The same applies to Zhou Guanyu, who won't stay at Sauber but also isn't currently seen as a serious contender for a race seat by Alpine. However, a reserve role can't be ruled out, even though Zhou himself will only take that as a last resort. The same applies for Logan Sargent, who won't be at Williams next year but hasn't performed well enough to justify consideration for a race seat. The wildcard in this equation is Liam Lawson. He performed well in his 5-race stint subbing for Daniel Ricciardo at AlphaTauri last year, but is under option for Red Bull. If he doesn't get a race seat at RB in 2025, it's possible he could be considered by Alpine, but right now that seems unlikely. As for Ocon, he's one of the key free agents in the driver market and will most likely end up at either Haas or Audi, the irony being that if Alpine hadn't already committed to dropping him, he'd be an outstanding candidate for it to sign. The fact Alpine is choosing from such a small pool of drivers, basically the few credible options who don't have a seat elsewhere and those who are on the brink of sliding off the F1 grid, tells you everything you need to know about its struggles. But given its status, as it is still owned by a major manufacturer, it's one that drivers may be willing to take a gamble on. If, that is, they don't have better options.